Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland in not Shenzhen, Chiang Mai, Thailand. Old habits die hard. 16 years is a long time. Before we get started, I've got it all set up now. You can please make even $1, $2, $3, whatever it is, to support my work and all the useful and informative news and research that you get from China Rising Radio Sinoland. This article took many hours of work, and I especially had to work on it because the machine translation of the article I got in Chinese was awful, and I spent a lot of time getting it, 95% correct. Or at least so that it would sound good when I read it. Thank you for doing that. There's Fundraiser, there's Patreon, there's PayPal. Anything that you do to recognize my efforts is really, really inspirational for me and keeps me going. Thank you. This one is entitled, Ren Zhengfei, founder of Huawei, says, quote, "My mentor is Chairman Mao Zedong." End of quote. I'm not surprised. Are you? Pictured above, a quote from the writings of Mao Zedong, the greatest and most influential national leader of the 20th century. It says in the English translation, "Do not keep thinking about me and do not expect me to come back. Instead, when it is my time to go, you will become me. Long live the people." Here we go. As I wrote extensively in the China trilogy, see below, it is impossible to understand and appreciate Mao Zedong behind the Great Western Firewall since the big lie propaganda machine, the BLPM, brainwashes people to loathe and fear anything and anyone associated with communism, socialism. The global capitalist oligarchs have to blind their sheeple to its century-long string of successes starting in 1917's Russia and up to today. Otherwise, the 1% would have a citizens' revolution on their hands and be forced to return their many stolen trillions of dollars and euros in social services, education, medicine, infrastructure, and real wage jobs back to the 99%. By the way, there are a gazillion links in this article, so be sure and go to either SoundCloud, YouTube, or the original article on China Rising Radio Sinoland. This is not a problem for Huawei's founder, Mr. Ren Zhengfei. In fact, he credits Mao Zedong Thought for Huawei's unbridled success since beginning in 1988 with $5,000 as a startup to today being among the most successful IT companies around. Below is Mr. Ren explaining how Mao Zedong permeates Huawei's corporate culture. Before continuing, and in addition to my other Huawei-related articles referenced above, here are a couple of more. All right, here we go. This has, of course, been translated from the Chinese. Ren Zhengfei's self-report. Because of the special background of the times, our generation has been stamped with the deep imprint of the Mao Zedong era. We are passionate and rational in the pursuit of ideals and aspirations. It seems that the purpose of life is to achieve an ideal state we yearn for through constant struggle, and the process is more important than the result. My understanding and inheritance of Mao Zedong are not only formal imitation, but also the inheritance of philosophical thoughts absorbed from Mao Zedong, among which the most core is dialectical thinking and self-negative consciousness. Some people say that Mao Zedong's military thought is an ideological weapon specially provided for the weak to defeat the strong. The development of Huawei in the past 20 years is actually a dramatic historical drama in which the weak become the strong and the weak win over the strong. There is no recognized corporate culture in the startup stage of Huawei, and Mao Zedong is the company's thought. Mao Zedong Thought created Ren Zhengfei, and Ren Zhengfei used Mao Zedong Thought to create the, quote, Huawei model, end of quote. A company appears to be listed as if the enterprise has the strength, growth as a high-end symbol, so a lot of substance does not have the strength of its public shell. Also, there are different examples, such as in some restructuring process with the original enterprise should be restructured into a joint stock company. The original factory director changes to chairman of the board of the directors, demanding a minimum percentage of shareholding, but as the big man leader chairman of the board of directors, not everyone else can own more shares, which will be decided by regulation reform. There can also be a nominal personal stake, internal. It is all the same. There are certainly a few such examples, but there are some. Huawei, on the other hand, is a different case. The private enterprise that Ren Zhengfei individually established accomplishes today so that no stone is left unturned to find strength that presses the scales and is not seen in the market all the time. What the market worships is the rate of return God. But instead of listing Huawei, Ren keeps the company private, with founder Ren Zhengfei owning 1.4% of the company. No wonder some people say that Ren Zhengfei is the best boss. They say that he is only 1% of the bosses, and 99% of the rest goes to the employees. Is in Huawei there is not an employee who does not work hard, because everybody everybody knows that the company is closely integrated with them. In this way, Huawei has provided the widest space for its employees with an extremely tolerant attitude. What is co-ownership? This is common ownership, common prosperity. Make money, everyone counts. Benefit, good, more points. Benefit, poor, less points. The rise and fall of the enterprise and the vital interests of the staff are closely related. What is more valuable is not to earn more and more money to send to the markets in the West, but to pay taxes to the country. Don't hear that very often in the West. Why did Ren Zhengfei do this? Personal feelings. Personal feelings by what decision? Outlook on life. Mao Zedong cultivated Ren Zhengfei. Patriotic red feelings. Ren Zhengfei, born in the year before the victory of the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression, 1944, grew up in New China. He was a college student trained by the People's Republic of China in the Mao Zedong era in the 1960s. He joined the army in the 70s and retired to Shenzhen in the 1980s to start Huawei. Mao, the great leader, said, "Of all things in the world, man is the most precious." Under the leadership of the Communist Party, as long as there are people, miracles can be created. And for Ren Zhengfei, it is precisely the Mao Zedong era where he was trained for the new era of the people who do not forget the original intention. Ren Zhengfei consciously maintains a healthy humanity and strong party spirit cultivated in the era of great leaders. As an excellent communist with a strong party spirit, Ren Zhengfei also participated in the 12th National Congress of the party in 1963, just 3 years after the natural disasters. Those were the floods and drought during the Great Leap Forward. Ren Zhengfei studied in Chongqing University in architecture and engineering. In 1966, when the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, founded a new branch of the army, Ren Zhengfei graduated from the university as an infrastructure engineer and entered the ranks responsible for key national infrastructure projects and national defense construction. After enlisting in the Army, he served successively as technician, engineer, deputy director, meaning deputy regiment level. 33-year-old Ren Zhengfei also won first prize for the PLA's technological achievements. He attended the National Science Conference in 1978, and among the 6,000 there, he was the youngest. Mao Zedong cultivated him as a college student at that time. The Army gave him a big stage to display his talent. So, Business Week magazine said Ren was, quote, born with a red silver spoon in his mouth, end of quote. Ren Zhengfei created the, quote, Huawei miracle, end of quote. Without Ren Zhengfei, there would be no Huawei. Ren Zhengfei has the courage, knowledge, and ability, all benefited from the cultivation of the Mao Zedong era and experience. Just as Dr. Tu Yoyo, she was the lady who won the Nobel Prize for discovering artemisinin to cure people from having malaria, or at least control it. She was a scientist trained under Mao. Ren is an entrepreneur. Ren Zhengfei. My mentor is Mao Zedong. Ren Zhengfei is an outstanding talent cultivated in the era of Mao Zedong. Ren Zhengfei continues to create the Huawei miracle with Mao Zedong Thought. The establishment of an enterprise needs the direction and thought of the enterprise. The direction and thought set up by Ren Zhengfei when he founded Huawei are deeply saturated with the sunshine and dew of Mao Zedong Thought. This has also become the focus of the mainstream media. Take a look at these titles. Interpreting the Truth of Huawei's Rise. Mao Zedong Thought Guides Huawei. Next, Huawei is invincible. Ren Zhengfei. My mentor is Mao Zedong. Next, Ren Zhengfei, the most mysterious entrepreneur in China. Next, Ren Zhengfei, president of Huawei, learning from Mao as a model among entrepreneurs. Next, Ren Zhengfei, military president, learning from Mao as a model among entrepreneurs. And then finally, why Chinese entrepreneurs worship Mao. Ren Zhengfei is a disciple of Mao Zedong, etc. So, how did Ren Zhengfei use Mao Zedong Thought to guide Huawei? When he was young, Ren Zhengfei was a pace setter for Mao. And so he continues to be a pioneer in entrepreneurship. Senior Huawei employees who know Mr. Ren say he pays great attention to studying politics and that he studied, quote, the selected works of Mao Zedong, end of quote, the most. In his spare time, he ponders how to turn Mao Zedong's military tactics into Huawei's strategy. Ren Zhengfei said, quote, I started Huawei. This source of strength is Mao Zedong. My mentor is Mao Zedong. This reminds me of Putin's words, my idol is Mao Zedong. End of quote. Huawei's management thoughts and strategic methods are, quote, deeply imprinted by Mao Zedong Thought, end of quote, as Ren Zhengfei said and did. On December 26, 1995, the birthday anniversary of Chairman Mao, Ren Zhengfei published the current situation and our tasks at the training conference of the marketing department. In 1998, Ren Zhengfei wrote an article entitled, How Long Can the Red Flag of Huawei Last?, which was all quoted from Mao Zedong. In the same year, he gave a speech entitled, quote, Hope in You, end of quote, and used Mao Zedong's famous words to students in the Soviet Union to encourage Huawei's young R&D, research and development staff, to have confidence in the future. Huawei adheres to the principle of seeking truth from facts, Mao's mass line, and independence. See how Ren Zhengfei implements Mao Zedong Thought. Some of Huawei's market strategies follow Mao Zedong's strategy of fighting wars. The most important thing is to seek truth from facts, follow the mass line, and be independent. The so-called seeking truth from facts means formulating strategies based on objective conditions. The so-called mass line is customer-oriented and requires long-term hard work. Luxury and pleasure will make it easy to lose touch with the masses. The so-called independence is to adhere to independent research and development. Ren Zhengfei embodies Mao Zedong thought and enterprise management culture and, quote, Huawei basic law, end of quote. An example for managing enterprise management cadres in accordance with Mao Zedong thought. In 1974, Chairman Mao summoned the commanders of the 8 military area commands to Beijing for a meeting. After standing up and singing the Internationale, Ren Zhengfei announced that the commanders of the 8 military area commands were to be switched, and only one orderly was allowed to be brought with them. According to the situation of this, quote, exchange of commanders of 8 military regions, end of quote, in 1996, Huawei asked for major resignations in the marketing department. More than 1,000 employees of the marketing department, mainly the principal cadres, resigned collectively and wrote the resignation report and the report on duty report respectively. There was no collective mutiny in Huawei's sales team, and the, quote, ability to go up and down in Huawei's organizational culture was formed. Criticism is mainly self-criticism. Ren Zhengfei carried out the criticism and self-criticism advocated by Mao Zedong in Huawei. Huawei has such a few rules. First is nobody gets a free ride. Second, focus on self-criticism. Third is to emphasize the truth and to seek truth from facts. Fourth is to not be infinite. Grasp the appropriate. Fifth, goodwill and constructiveness are the main premises. Adhere to Mao Zedong's independence. Adhere to independent research and development. Huawei adheres to Mao Zedong's thought of independence and autonomy, which is clearly defined as, quote, insisting on independent research and development, end of quote. Foreigners come to China to make money, Mr. Zhen said. They don't teach core technologies to the Chinese, but they expect us to import again. Markets for technology were all lost. We did not really grasp which technology. And the core competitiveness of enterprises, in fact, is technology. A Huawei classic quote is, resources will be exhausted, only culture will be endless. Huawei unveils 5G commercial, the 5G commercial era. By the end of December 2018, Huawei had signed commercial contracts for 5G with operators in 25 countries, including the UK, Germany, and Italy, and more than 50 countries were conducting commercial tests with Huawei. Huawei is the, quote, only real 5G supplier, end of quote, which is true, in the world, and Huawei stands at the peak of the information world in the era of 5G. Huawei has not forgotten Mao Zedong's original intention of building public, and in this case, employee ownership, innovating a new form of public, and they mean employee ownership. Ren Zhengfei read Das Kapital and read Mao, not forgetting the heart, remembers to create the socialist public ownership sacrifice of more than 20 million martyrs. He's talking about all the people that died during World War II and the Civil War. Compared with Huawei's contribution to the national economy and science and technology, Huawei innovates a new form of public ownership practice, which is a milestone with more historical significance. Quote, when I started the company, I designed the employee stock ownership system to unite employees through benefit sharing, Mr. Zhen said. Based on past life setbacks, I realized that I should share responsibilities and benefits with the employees. End of quote. Ren Zhengfei used public, and when he says public in this, he means employee. Ren Zhengfei used public ownership to unite employees and create Huawei's form of public/employee ownership with 5 characteristics. First, it is a huge form of public/employee ownership with more than 170,000 employees. It is the largest information industry company in the world. Tencent, a competitor, has a total of 110,000 employees. Second, Huawei is the only non-listed company among the world's top 500, which subverts the myth of the Western model of the capital market. Third, it is a worldwide form of public ownership. Huawei employees come from 156 countries and regions, and foreign employees represent about 20 to 30%. Fourth, advanced forms of public, meaning employee ownership of high-tech enterprises with more than 170,000 employees and 70,000 R&D, research and development personnel. That's amazing. Fifth, the realization of public/employee ownership with a mature organizational structure. In order to ensure that Huawei belongs to Huawei, Huawei has a mature organizational structure, such as the composition of employee shareholders, the exercise of relevant rights by the shareholding union, and the election by the board members. I strongly agree with this conclusion. As an advanced mode of production relations, the new form of public/employee ownership created by Huawei undoubtedly meets the requirements of advanced, in parentheses, Marxist productive forces, and produces a broad space for the development of high-tech advanced productive forces. This is of great significance and even more valuable than 5G. As the boss or partner of an enterprise, have you ever thought that the era of equity investment in China has come, which is the best time for small and medium-sized enterprises to enter the capital market? The average lifespan of Chinese SMEs is only 3.5 years, and that of group enterprises is only 7 to 8 years. Not only the life cycle of the enterprise is short, but strong and large enterprises are few. Enterprises that do not last long do not have the deep root to run the course, since the core root is only one. The enterprise's equity went wrong. Gen Fund founders, it's a hedge fund or investment fund, ZHEN fund. Gen Fund founders argue that partners matter more than business models and industry choices, more than whether you're in the hot seat. The death of an enterprise is not caused by external competition, but by internal friction. There is an old saying in China, business is easy, but business is hard. Equity is not only a technology, but also an art. If the employee is disobedient, you can tell him to pack up and leave. What if shareholders disagree? How many bosses fall into the top 10 traps of equity because they don't understand equity? Companies that play out every day the, quote, romance of the three kingdoms, which was a television series here in China about greed, revenge, and betrayal. The Five Kings of War, which is from the West, with performance, profit, and enthusiasm significantly damaged. How many companies are unable to grow quickly and get listed because they are stuck in an equity impasse that leads to shareholder infighting? How do enterprises allocate equity? 1. The term of equity can be set. There is long-term, medium-term, and short-term equity. Equity stratification will have a body. Number 2, do you have shareholders in your company who pay for everything but work? How much should his equity ratio be set to be reasonable? Should they buy the shares at the same price as you? Number 3, what kind of equity ratio is the most reasonable? How to build a perfect shareholding structure. Number 4, when the ownership structure is not reasonable, enterprises will never do much. Equity distribution that is not good makes enterprises that are easy to split. How to avoid 1 mountain, 2 tigers, 3 kingdoms, and 5 kings. Number 5, the future trend is not the employment system, but the partnership model. What is the partnership model and how to establish the partnership model? After those 5 points, 15 years ago, how did Jack Ma Yuen gain 18 arhats, A-R-H-A-T-S, from Buddhism, the achievement of today's Alibaba myth? Because he started a business to do clear equity planning and equity incentive design. The event of Ma Yuen's listing tells us equity can attract talent, such as Joseph Tsai. Number 2, equity can retain talent, 18 Lohans or 18 Arhats. Number 3, equity can be financed, in this case by Masayoshi Son. Number 4, equity can play the market, in this case cooperating with Yahoo. And number 5, with Equity Design Holdings, Ma Yuen controls the company with less than 10%. Why did Huawei grow from 40,000 yuan to more than 200 billion yuan? Because he began to carry out full staff shareholding in the 1990s, began to establish joint ventures with customers in the country. The point is that with less than 1% of Mr. Zhen's shares, how can he still control the company? On the contrary, how was Sina, S-I-N-A founder Mao Zedong kicked out? Little sheep raised a baby and called it daddy. This is Jeff J. Brown signing out. I hope you enjoyed this. I thought it was really worthwhile sharing with you all. For those of you who do not read Chinese, have a great day.